To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey, I'm Joe Pruitt. I'm the publisher and /CEO of Aftershock Comics, and you're watching The Experience.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. Today, we're going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. Now, if you are one of the 3-4 people in the world who don't really know who Boba Fett is, we got a little video for you. Disney posted this just recently, so let's run that, and then we'll talk about the show.
Apologize for the delay. Something went very wrong with my browser, and it would just be a second.
Okay. The Book of Boba Fett launched night before last on Disney Plus. It is kind of a follow-up to The Mandalorian because we brought the character back there, but the character of Boba Fett started in the 1970s, technically. He was a designed costume they came up with. They started taking him out to parades. He originally was going to be one of many of super stormtroopers. And then once they built the costume, they went, this is kind of expensive. Let's just make him one and make him this badass bounty hunter instead. And originally he was going to be all white, and then they made him up into this multicolored outfit that he's got. He then, of course, debuted in the 1978 holiday special where, he was in the animated episode, probably the best thing in the entire holiday special. And B. Arthur, but, B. Arthur's always great. And we got to see him kind of deceiving Luke and Han, as he was trying to track things down and working for Darth Vader. We got to see his gun, and we didn't get to see the gun again, the big rifle, until Mandalorian brought it back. A few other things the Mandalorian brought back, like the mythosaur and things like that. So then, of course, we got a video now. All right, let's do the video.
Left for dead on the sands of Tatooine. I am Boba Fett.
Tamora Morrison is an incredible actor. He's an incredible presence. What he brings to the performance of Boba is just awesome.
Tim, he brings all sides of himself when he plays the character. And I think the audience is going to be surprised just how likable this character is because of Tim. I intend to rule with respect.
It was an exciting comeback. It's wearing that armor that gives you a sense of power. Yeah, I'm just one part. Another little small cog in the machine, and it's all adding up to magic.
All right, we'll finish up the history. That was pretty cool, I got to tell you. Finish up the history real quick on him. He, of course, JD, I think your mic's on. He, of course, made his debut in like 2 minutes. He had about 2 minutes of screen time in Empire Strikes Back, where we meet him with all the other bounty hunters. And, of course, he gets Han at the end to take him to Jabba. And then in Return of the Jedi, we get to meet him. And he has one of the most anticlimactic endings, I think, of any character that was built up so much. Now, part of what built him up was this figure giveaway that Kenner did at the time that you had to send away for him. And then his jetpack on the toy launched. You know, you could actually fire a little missile. But around that same time, some kid choked on a missile from a Colonial Viper. So they had to recall all the toys. They never got, or they didn't send them out. They had to remake them so they didn't fire. So there was delays and delays. So there was a lot of stuff going on with Boba, making him much bigger than his actual screen time. Of course, many writers and cartoonists, our comic creators, have played with the character since. He's been in novels, he's been in comics, and kind of elaborating on his backstory and stuff. And of course, there was the famous Patton Oswalt rant from was it Parks and Rec, I think, or Community, where he just goes on about, you know, him pulling himself out of the Sarlacc pit, and we find out Patton pretty much had it. It's almost like Patton wrote the episode, except the first episode was written by Jon Favreau. The series is credited to being created by Jon Favreau, not Favreau and Dave Filoni. Now, they are producing partners on this, just like they were on The Mandalorian. But this does seem to have a little bit more of a Jon Favreau feel to it than the combined two. You know, Dave Filoni tends to bring in a lot of his creations from the animated shows. You know, we got Ahsoka Tano, we got Bo-Katan Kryze, we get General Thrawn. I mean, General Thrawn's not his creation, but he used him really well. So you got a lot of those characters coming into The Mandalorian. Well, this may be more of a specific to Boba Fett, and then Fennec Shand, of course, was introduced in Mandalorian and then showed up in The Bad Batch, but she was a live-action character first. And that's where we start off here. We pick up with Boba. The whole episode starts off with Boba in the Bacta tank. And the Bacta tank, of course, I mean, when we see him in Mandalorian, he is pretty scar-covered. It doesn't look like he's had much of a luxurious life. And it looks like he's just starting to have some of the scars on his face are starting to be healed by the Bacta tank. And we get some of his origin. It's interesting the way they did this. There was so many questions lingering about what happened after the Sarlacc pit to where we saw him in the Mandalorian episode approaching Fennec Shand. How did that happen? How did he go from armored and falling in the Sarlacc pit to his armor being on a Jawa sandcrawler where Cobb Vanth buys it, and him walking around with gaffy sticks and guns like he's a Tusken Raider? Well, this is where we start getting that groundwork laid out. And also, it is very much the thing with Jon Favreau is he embraces the true inspiration for Star Wars, the Akira Kurosawa films and the old westerns. He kind of gets where they came from, which I think a lot of the newer series are just trying to make cool Star Wars movies off of cool Star Wars movies. Where Favreau seems to actually go back and go, okay, I'm going to make a Western. That's what Star Wars is. Star Wars, you're making a Western. You're just putting it in a different planet, a different setting. But, you know, when you're on Tatooine, you're really not that different than some of the Western settings with in the middle of Arizona, or, you know, the dirt bowls and stuff like that. So I think that's why Favreau's been successful and the last couple movies haven't. Because I think he really has embraced what makes Star Wars work, which is the Western genre and the old samurai movie genre, the Akira Kurosawa stuff. But we see that here. We go back to, we see Boba Fett as he's in the back of the tank. He starts to dream, and we get images of him as a boy and picking up Jango Fett's helmet and seeing his reflection in it after his dad had been killed. And we get that stuff, and then we move forward to him going into the Sarlacc pit. We see him wake in the Sarlacc pit and how he gets out of it, which is fascinating. He finds a stormtrooper who's been decomposing in there. And you have to think that stormtrooper's probably been in there a while, because there were no stormtroopers part of Jabba's palace. So that guy's probably back when they were looking for Luke on the planet, or looking for the Death Star plans. He probably fell into the Sarlacc pit, and they didn't bother to get him back out. So he's been in there for a while, and luckily he's still got some oxygen that Boba can use, because it's probably not breathable in there. The oxygen you breathe into your body goes into your lung. It doesn't go into your belly. So he gets the oxygen so he can survive, and then he fights his way out. Jeff Wedding says that opening with the Sarlacc hit all the young me buttons from the original Marvel series in 81. Exactly. It's absolutely, yeah. That's what I'm talking about, is that it's almost like they went, look, we're going to do 7 episodes of Book of Boba Fett, and we've got a story we want to tell. But everybody wants to know what the hell happened. So let's get that out of the way up front. Let's take the time to explain how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, and why reinvent the wheel. There's been so many good versions of how he got out. Let's just show it for once in live action. We've seen it in comics. We've seen it described by Patton Oswalt. We've seen it, or we've read it in books and novels. Let's actually see it. And you get that gloved hand and armored wrist popping out of the sand and pulling himself out, and just exhausted once he's finally done. He's caked with sand and and then he collapses on there. And of course, that's when the Jawas show up and they go, salvage. And he starts just taking off all his armor. And as soon as they do that and then knock him out before they leave, we've now got Cobb Vanth set up. That's taken care of. Simple. And then the Tusken Raiders come by and take him in. And focusing on the past is pretty interesting, because when the Tusken Raiders come in and they take him, now they could have tortured him like they did Anakin's mom, but they don't. They keep him as potential slave labor along with the Rodian. And we were introduced to these dog-like creatures called massives. Now, they've shown up in a few places. I believe they showed up in one of the prequel series. But we get a really good look at them in The Mandalorian. And one of the things The Mandalorian did, I think it really changed how we look at the Tusken Raiders. Instead of looking at these savages that just attack for no reason, we started getting a better feel for them in the same way how Native Americans were portrayed in Westerns. In the early days, they were just the bad guys. They were Native Americans, so they were the bad guys. That was all that mattered. As Westerns progressed and audiences got more, evolved, matured, however you want to put it, they started doing more with these characters. And that's where they're at now with the Tusken Raiders. They're much more like Native Americans are handled now in films. They're not just bad guys because they're bad guys. There's depth, there's reasons for them, there's family, there's culture. It's like a child, we're seeing a youngling, a Tusken Raider, and that's unheard of, I think, in a lot of ways. But we get to see that. And we see that in The Mandalorian, too, when he and Cobb Vanth try to make friends with the Tuskens. Yeah, the Tuskens are having a Dances with Wolves moment. It really is the Dances with Wolves. In a lot, yeah, absolutely. That's a great analogy. They take him in. He tries to escape at one point. He has the opportunity to hurt one of the child that's keeping an eye on him, and he doesn't. Now, I've seen one person complain, and this is probably the root of where it starts, that Boba Fett is different than the way we remember him from the olden days. He has more of a moral code. The fact that he felt he had to help Din Djarin get the child back because of the deal he made, and he stuck with it. And the fact that, that's not how we really got the sense of him in the few scenes we saw of him. Now, I haven't read a whole lot of the legends and stuff about Boba Fett, but I know that he was always a bounty hunter, and he was always, the highest bidder type of thing. But this is a little different. This is much more in line with him being kind of a Mandalorian, having those beliefs, having those thoughts. So I know there are some people out there who are complaining that they're making him a good guy. They're softening him. And I don't know if that's the case, or with everything he's gone through, he just looks at life differently. That would be my thought, that everything he's gone through, he looks at life differently. And his priorities are different. It's not just about bringing in the bounty. It's about making a life, setting up what he's going to do with his life. So I think that's what the big change is. But so we stay with there was a cutback scene, but it's easier to look at the episode by the flashbacks and then modern day. So we're going to stick with the flashbacks for now. So he gets his hands free and uses the Mastiff's mouth to get himself loose. And he knocks the Mastiff out, but he doesn't kill it. He knocks the kid down, but doesn't hurt him. And then tries to run off. And of course, the adult Tusken Raiders give chase, capture him, and they give him a chance, give him a one-on-one fight, which I thought was interesting. And when he loses, they take him back and they tie him back up. Now, later on, and I think that's where we jump back in time to the modern day. But later on, when he's back in the back of the tank again, he even mentions how he's having these dreams again. So when he's back in the tank again, we find out that he and the Rodian are being taken. Oh, and the Rodian betrayed him. Absolutely. Called out for help when he was trying to get away. But they're taken out to, first they see a moisture farmer being attacked by rival gang, or these gang members, cartel members. Now, I'm not sure which cartel it is. Is a good chance it's the same cartel that hit Mos Pelego, which is where Cobb Vanth is. Because they started taking over as soon as the Death Star got blown up, and this wouldn't be that far after around that same time. So, and then we see that Jabba has fallen, and the cartels are coming in, and there's no real order on Tatooine anymore. And we see this group of they look like Nictus, and they've got speeder bikes, and they kill this family, they rob them. And then they mark the house and then leave. And Boba sees this. And this might be where things start clicking upstairs for him, because why else show the scene? But he knows that with the fall of Jabba, there is this uncertainty, there is this power vacuum. And he's, can he put himself in a position to fill it? That would be the thought. That would be the way things are going at that point. But at this point, he's still a prisoner. and he's being led around by, like I said, a young or a childlike Tusken Raider. And they go to this one spot where they're digging for. You've seen them hold those. I guess they're almost fruit. They're like pods with water in them or drink in them. And it's what Cobb Vanth got offered in The Mandalorian and tried to refuse. And then eventually he took the drink when he started working with them properly. So that's what they're digging for. And the Rodians having great luck. I guess those sucker fingers makes it easier to dig, those weird fingers. But he's got a couple of them. And then Boba finally gets one, and he pops it open and drinks from it. And the Tusken's like, no, and starts to want to hit him. He ends up drinking anyway, gives it the other half to him, and the kid just pours out the rest. So I guess, we don't want to drink after you. But as they're digging and they're progressing, and the Tusken's actually laying down, the Massive is chill, these guys are digging. The Rodian digs a little too deep and basically digs into the Harryhausen collection, where this centaur-like creature comes up. He's got 6 limbs, but he runs on 4 of them, and then when he stands up, 4 of them fight. It's kind of weird. It's an interesting design. So he's running on his hands and feet, but he's got an extra set of hands too. It's a real neat design, but it did feel like it was a Ray Harryhausen creation. It had that look to it. The head to it will look like something straight out of one of Harryhausen's classic films. It kills the Rodian. It starts to hurt the Tusken boy and girl. It's really hard to tell with those masks on. But Boba gets the chain that he's been adhered to, gets it around the thing's neck and chokes it out. Very similar to how Leia chokes out Jabba. So there's a callback there. Jeff says, if Ray Harryhausen had done Tarkus, yes. There was, the head reminded me of a Harryhausen creation. The body reminded me of John Carter from The Martians. Yeah, I'll give you that one. But as they're fighting, he gets it, he kills it, and then, of course, he goes back with the kid to the village. And at this point, where can he really go? He doesn't really know where he is. I mean, he talked about getting to Anchorage, getting off planet, stuff like that. But, at this point, he's sticking with them. He goes back with the kid. The kid brings into the village carrying the head of this creature, is all excited. Everybody like, oh my God, look what he did. Look what he did. And I think the kid is taking credit for it. It's hard to tell, but he's like, oh, gee, and then Boba walks up, and the head of the tribe, the chief, stands next to him and simply hands him a pot of water. And Boba takes it and drinks, and it's that simple. And you're like, okay, he's been accepted. He's proven himself as a potential ally, as a warrior, whatever it is they look for. He's had that. He's passed that. So we're now on the way to seeing the Boba we got at the end, the Boba that fights with the gaffy stick, and the Morari, Timu Morrison's background, that fighting style. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. It's and again, very Dances with Wolves, in that he's become accepted by the tribe, having saved a child, helped save a child, helped defeat an enemy. So now some of the interesting things about this, how much Timu Morrison has taken the role and made it his own. Because I don't think we forget, but there's been a big push to make it his, but it didn't start with him. He wasn't in the original movies. It was Jeremy Bulloch. We had a different actor in the suit, but they've gone back and actually edited in Tem's voice over the Boba Fett scenes. So when he does speak in the movies now, in the original series, on the re-releases and stuff, it's Tim and not Jeremy Bulloch, which I'm not sure I'm okay with. I'm kind of mixed on that. I get it from a storyteller's point of view. Well, we have this guy, we have his voice now, and we've made it where all of the clones are based off of Jango, and Boba Fett's a clone, therefore he should sound exactly like Jango did. And we've got the same actor, we can do that. So from a storytelling point of view, I get the wanting to make the best story possible. You know, connect the dots, you know, go back and fill things in. The problem with that, though, on the other side is it's kind of rude to Jeremy Bulloch. It's changing the stories we grew up with. It's, do we need it is the other thing, is do we need it? And I think that's the argument one way or the other on that. Is from a storytelling point of view, you're telling the most tight, cohesive story possible. Well, from the point of view of not wanting to do it, you're changing what has become your, you know, and of a beloved story. So, you know, it'd be kind of like, I think in one of the recent Batman storylines, they said that Bruce Wayne had a brother. And that would be like going back into all the movies and superimposing like a child, a brother that, you know, oh, they're coming out of the thing and there was a baby on the ground next to them, you know, an infant that they had with them or something. I don't know. But it would be equivalent of that in some ways, just changing the movies that have already been out and beloved for 20, 30, 40 years or more. And my God, how long has... Oh, Empire came out in 1980. 41 years? Anybody else feel really old right now? So, yeah. Now, one of the interesting things I found in this opening is that other than two sentences, there's no dialogue for the first 12 minutes of the episode. At one point, Boba looks over at the Rodian and says, "Hey, Rodian, do you want me to undo your bindings?" And when the Rodian starts to scream, he goes, "Quiet, quiet." That's it. That's the entire dialogue for the first 12 minutes of the show until Fennec wakes him up in the back to tank. That's a huge gamble. This is the premiere of a brand new series, and you're going to go silent for the first quarter of it? I mean, how long was this episode? I got it here. Let me pull that up. 38 minutes. So almost 13 minutes. So almost a third of the episode is silent. That's risky. That's huge, but no one's complaining about that. There's not a peep. Not a single person have I seen complain about the fact that the first 12 minutes, almost 13 minutes, are completely silent. Or silent, you know. No problem with that. They're good. No dialogue at all. We're good. I like that. I like that the fans are accepting that, and I like that the creators actually took that risk. So, and I like the fact that here we are through the first episode, and we've already answered what happened. You know, how did he get with the Tusken Raiders? How he bonded with them? How the Jawas got his armor? How he got out of the Sarlacc pit? All taken care of. And we still got plenty of setup for what's going on forward. But we'll talk about that after the break. We're at the halfway point. We'll be right back in just a minute.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Hi, I'm Nathan Fox. I'm chair of the MFA Visual Narrative Program at the School of Visual Arts, as well as co-creator and artist on the Weatherman series through Image Comics. And you are watching The Experience.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 1, which just debuted 2 nights ago, and absolutely loved it. I should tell you that. Absolutely loved it. But before we get back into that talk, let me do a couple bits of business here. One, please hit, if you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button. If you're on Facebook, hit the like button. If you're on Twitter or Twitch, do whatever you do on Twitch. That helps us a lot, especially like on YouTube. We're trying to build up to a certain number of followers. It opens up many more things we can do with the site. So there's a functionality we gain when we get to a certain level of followers. So please hit the subscribe, hit the like, do that stuff for us. It'd be very appreciated. And tell your friends about the show. You know, I mean, we're on here 3 days a week talking about all the pop culture stuff. You guys get to join in the conversation. I know about you. Sometimes I want to talk nerdy and I got no one to talk to. Well, this is where you go to talk. This is where we come together and talk all the pop culture stuff. All right, stick around after the show. Miss Jen is going to be doing What's in the Box. And it's a pretty neat show. If you haven't watched it yet, she goes into the warehouse and basically she pulls a box without necessarily knowing what's in it, but it's a box from her comic warehouse, so she knows it's stuff to sell. But then she puts it up for sale, and you get a chance to go after these things. So you don't know what's going to be on the show. It's a complete surprise to her. It's a complete surprise to her. You don't even know what company it's going to be coming from. It could be a Marvel box. It could be an Aftershock box. It could be anything. So What's in the Box? It's a lot of fun, and you'll want to stick around for that. And that's coming up right after this. All right, let's get back into the talk. Let's put the spoiler thing back up. Hey, let's roll the spoiler thing. We didn't roll that earlier. Let's roll that. I think I just enjoy watching that. That's always fun. All right, so one of the things I noticed, and it popped up pretty early on, is when they did the episode title, it's Stranger in a Strange Land, which is a Robert Heinlein novel that basically is about a guy who is raised on Mars in a completely different culture and then comes back to Earth and has to find a way to blend in. Now, this might be a metaphor for what Boba Fett's doing. You know, he's kind of finding his way to blend in on Tatooine with the Sand People, and then later on in the episode with the cartels, with the capos, the bosses, and all that other stuff, or the vassals. So that's what it could mean. He's raised very differently. He was raised as a bounty hunter by his father. He was then mentored by Cad Bane and some other people. I think it was Cad Bane that mentored. No, it was Arun Singh, I think it is. But he's got a lot of bounty hunters that taught him a lot of bad ways to do things, and maybe he's trying a different approach. He's trying to adjust to this new world. And that comes up quite a bit with Fennec Shand. Fennec is very much of the, if you're going to fill in for Jabba, be like Jabba. Make people fear you. If they talk back, throw them in the Rancor pit. If they betray you, you torture them. Those are the things that Fennec thinks he should be doing. And to the point of being carried by a litter through the city to be honored, like, oh my God, it's him. And he doesn't want that. He's coming from a very different approach. So when she wakes him up from the Bacta pit and we get out of the first set of flashbacks, he goes, puts on his armor, and we get the suit up montage, which I always find kind of interesting because I'm not sure what the purpose of a suit up montage is, especially if you're suiting up to go sit in a chair. I mean, it's one thing if you're suiting up for the first time and you're going to go fly off and, it's Tony Stark suiting up for the first time. He's going to go attack the terrorists who are, in Afghanistan or whatever. That's fine. But if you're doing a suit up montage so that Boba can go sit on the throne and listen to people offer him tribute, doesn't really seem like a good place for a suit up montage. I don't know. Plus, Boba didn't strike me as somebody who'd want to be suited up. It feels like he's more of a do-it-yourself kind of guy. But, hey, we got a suit up montage. The little robot-like things from Phantom Menace are helping him get dressed and put on. And you get to see how it's put on, I think all cosplayers are out there going, oh, yeah, that's how mine works. Yeah, perfect. Oh, yeah. But he gets all suited up, and then he goes and he sits on his throne, and Fennec, of course, stands next to him. And the very first person we see is an Aqualesh. And if you're not familiar with the Aqualesh, or sometimes we know them by other names. I grew up knowing him as Walrus Man. Guy that got his arm chopped off in the cantina in the first Star Wars movie. And then later on they came out, he's an Aqualesh. He's not a walrus. He looks like a Walrus Man. You told me he was Walrus Man. I got the action figure and it said Walrus Man. That was fun. 7, 8, 9 years old. It said Walrus Man. No, he's an Aqualesh. And he goes into this whole thing and he brings a cantina of coins and gold and stuff and credits. And as he offers it up, he gives this big speech. And Boba and Fennec just nod. Yes, very good, yes. And he leans over to Fennec and goes, did you get any of that? He goes, something about friendship? And he's like, we really need a protocol droid. Instead of a protocol droid, he has 8B8, who has worked for Boba or for Jabba for a long time. And he's being voiced by Matt Berry, who, of course, is from What We Do in the Darkness. Is that what it's called? What We Do in the Dark? The Taika Waititi vampire TV series. Yeah, he's from that. So he's doing the voice, and that's great. And he's very much like, well, look, we captured What We Do in the Shadows. Thank you, JD. This droid is very much like, look, we captured these Gamorrean guards, and they, refused to surrender when you took over. We shall torture them and teach a lesson. He's like, no, don't torture. And the droid's like, you really should torture these. That's kind of the thing. You're going to be as a daimyo. And they refer to him as a daimyo, which is interesting because that's a Japanese honorific, and so they're carrying over the samurai culture that, of course, is part of it too. Matt freaking Berry, super fun voice cameo. Yeah, exactly, Jeff. I thought that was great. Yeah. But yeah, so his whole thing is to be a daimyo. And then, of course, there is a Trandoshan that shows up. And as soon as you see a Trandoshan, a lot of people went, well, do we get Bosk? I want Bosk. When is Bosk coming? Well, this is Doc Strassi, who is the head of the Trandoshans on Tatooine. And he's played by Robert Rodriguez, the producer and director of the episode, which I thought was interesting. And I guess Rodriguez plays also maybe it's the mayor or something else. So he's got 2 roles in this, but Robert Rodriguez is playing the Trandoshan, and I love the Trandoshans. I'm a huge Trandoshan fan. One of my favorite things about Star Wars: The High Republic is that there's a Trandoshan Jedi, which just blows my mind. Or there's a fan film out there that it basically takes the plot of Predator and swaps in Bosk instead. And it's fantastic. It's really well done. So if you get a chance to see that, I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I do recommend. It's a fun little fan film. But so the Trandoshan comes in, he offers him a tribute. And of course, even when these Trandoshans compliment you, it comes across like they're a threat. He says, "We hope you never leave Mos Espa." And it's like, oh, you want me dead? I'm not sure if that's a... that's such a good idea. So, yeah, it's neat seeing the Trandoshans back. I hope Bosk shows up. I think Bosk, they're long-lived, so he could still be around. But I'm a Bosk fan. I'm a Trandoshan fan. I think they're kind of the Klingons of the Star Wars world. Putting that aside, then the mayor's Major Domo shows up, and he is being played by this improv comedian named David Pasquesi. He plays the major. He doesn't get a name. He's Mok Shaz's Major Domo, Mok Shaz being the mayor of Mos Espa. And he comes in and totally turns the table on everything, but he does it in a very polite way, big arm gestures, and he talks about how, yes, Jeff, the scorekeeper, that is absolutely the title for it. That is absolutely great. Maybe if JD's got a second, he can look for the YouTube link for Scorekeeper. Anyway, the Major Domo comes in, and basically instead of coming in and paying tribute, he basically turns it around and says the mayor wants tribute. And the mayor is trying to push him, and Boba Fett's like, wait, I'm the crime lord. He's supposed to pay me. But, they tell him, well, you can leave with your life. That is our tribute. So, and of course he says, well, don't be surprised if another, you get visited by another group from the mayor. Veiled threats. And that was the neat thing, is there's a lot of veiled threats in here. Well, after this whole thing, Boba decides to go visit some places. There it is. Thank you, JD. Scorekeeper. So if you're looking to watch the Scorekeeper, that's the YouTube video right there. It's really good. I think they did an amazing job with it. And stick around. I think there's an end credit scene that includes Boba Fett. So they go to one of the major, well, I guess it's a pleasure palace. They don't like to say brothel in Star Wars, but it's a brothel. And it's run by, let me get her name. It's the actress, of course, is Jennifer Beals, who, very famous actress. But it's Garza Fwip is running it. And they go in, and of course, they're, it's much more respected. They're asked if they can service and clean their helmets for them while they're there. And of course, Boba lets them. And then when they get it back, it's full of coins or credits. So she's playing along. And I don't know how this character is going to work in. That's the one thing. She's an interesting character, but where is she going to play in? Is she going to be an ally? Is she going to be a foe? How does that work? Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see where she plays in, because she's probably one of the biggest names in the series, So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how that works. But she gives them a warm reception. And so possibly an ally. But when they leave, and he's got his two Gamorreans with him, Jeff says, curious to see if Jennifer Beals' character and her establishment become a setting similar to Rick's Cafe Americana in Casablanca, and there is a Bogart, Claude Rains type interplay there. Jeff, that's really good. You may have just nailed it there. That could be. And she becomes and she could become an ally, a reluctant ally. Maybe she sees how Boba, and he says it in it, how he will not, he doesn't want to rule through fear. He wants to rule through respect. And that could change how things are done and make it easier and make it better for the vassals. And he's got a bunch of vassals, and he's going to go around visiting all of them. And Fennec's like, you don't have to go with me to all of them. Jabba never left the palace. Well, Jabba was also giant and didn't get around very well. But Boba wants to, and he won't be carried on a litter. And that's one of the things she says, well, I didn't see your litter. He says, I walk on my own 2 feet. So you see the changes he's starting to make, and he's pushing it forward visually in a lot of ways. He's not doing the standard stuff, and he's doing that on purpose. I think it's to make a sentiment that he's more than just a figurehead, or he's more than just, sitting on the throne. He is dangerous himself. And I like that a lot. I like how he's handling it. But of course, when they go back out in the street, they get attacked. Now, this is one of the best attacks I've seen in any of the Star Wars stuff. These guys, these red-suited guys come in. They've got these red energy shields, and they're a little bit reminiscent of, you remember in Phantom Menace, the red energy shields when they were fighting Darth Maul, when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and it separated Obi-Wan from them, and they had to wait for them to turn for him to get any further in. It seems like that level of energy shield, and they surround him almost in like a Roman gladiator type setup, where all the shields keep them in a circle, and they can't get to them. But these guys have these electroshock sticks that we've seen in other Star Wars things as well. They can jam them through real quick, hit, and then back, and still keep the barrier up. And this was a great attack, and they probably could have taken out Boba and Fennec pretty easily had the Gamorreans, who, Boba decided to spare if they work for him, and they, his loyalty to him. Well, they swear loyalty to him, and they run in and they start attacking, and they break the barrier, allowing them to get out. And in doing so, fight back. Now, in this fight, Boba doesn't have his helmet because it was full of credits. So as soon as you see that, you got to wonder who sent these guys. That's going to be the big question, is who sent these guys in red? Were they sent by the mayor? Is this the contingency the mayor was going to send? Is this from a rival boss or crime lord who thinks that he's the one that's taken over? Did Jennifer Beals' character, is she the one that put that out there? I'll fill his helmet with credits so he's weaker when he goes back out in the streets. There's a lot of possibilities who sent these groups. So that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So we see he already has enemies, and it's not going to be, I've taken over for Bib Fortuna. And you got to wonder, how much did Bib Fortuna really control things? Because it looks like Jabba came in, and Jabba had an iron rule. But when Bib Fortuna took over, I don't think he really took over. I think a lot of these other cartels were gaining ground and moving in, and you got Red Sun, and there's a bunch of cartels in the Star Wars lore, and I think many of them were moving in. So I don't think Bib Fortuna really controlled it at all. So I think all of them are there. So what Boba's going to have to do is not only take over what Bib did hang on to, he's going to have to fight back to get all the territory back that Jabba once had. And Jabba's been gone a little while now. It's been about 5-6 years, I think it is. If storytelling is right, maybe it's within 10 years, 5 to 10 years. So it's going to be interesting to see all he has to go through to rebuild that empire that Jabba had. So, and that seems to be what Boba wants to do. Now, why Boba wants to do this, that's still one of the factors. What is it? Why did Boba do this? Why does Boba want to take over the crime in Tatooine? I mean, he seemed to have a pretty good life as a bounty hunter. Maybe he doesn't want to do that anymore. But this is pretty big. This is really ambitious. So is that what he's doing? He just decided he wants to take over? I don't know. I think there's going to be a motivation there that we don't know yet. That I think that's going to be one of the questions left. You know, who attacked him? Why is he doing this? I think those are the two big questions coming out of it, and how exactly Jennifer Beals' character of Garza is going to fit in. And also, we'll probably find out more. I think he'll have other allies. He'll have other enemies. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. Doc Strassi, who he used to work for and now is paying tribute. That should be an interesting relationship. The 8B8 droid, or they have it listed as a UK2B droid, but in the closed caption, he was known as 8B8. Will that character be around? Will he get a protocol droid? I saw somebody go, oh, he needs a protocol droid. Maybe he'll get C-3PO. Really? I think there's other protocol droids they could get. There's probably a program that they could download into the 8B8 droid and just make him a protocol droid. You know, I mean, it's a software package at that point, I would think. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered, but the episode is short. It's only 38 minutes. And where I love the fact that they came in, they went, okay, y'all want to know how he got out of the Sarlacc pit and how he ended up working with the Tusken Raiders, how his armor got with the Jawas? Let's just do that. We're going to take care of it. And while we're doing that, we're going to start setting up this Godfather-like crime lord story where he's trying to get the territory back that has fallen. That's what the first episode is. But it seems like we could have got a little bit more. You know, 38 minutes felt short. When we got to the end, I was like, really? It's that short? And Boba doesn't do anything in this. He fights back. He kills one guy with his wrist launcher that attacked them. We get a great parkour running scene with Fennec and the two that remain, and then she captures one and kills the other, so that they have a prisoner. Hell, they could have just given us the interrogation scene of that guy, so we find out who hired him. But they kind of just cut it off, and it just seems like we could have got a little bit more. Boba could have been a little more proactive. You know, he's out there checking on his vassals. He's getting his tributes, but there was no, other than the fight, and he didn't really fight that well because he was so outnumbered and stuff that, you know, he didn't have that moment of, you know, oh, well, you turned on me and kill him. He didn't have that Tony Soprano moment yet. So, and I mean, that's pretty much what Boba Fett is in this, is he's Tony Soprano. So JD says, I think the point was that he isn't the warrior he used to be. And that is true. But if that was true, what the hell was that episode of Mandalorian where he took on all those stormtroopers and beat the crap out of them with a gaffy stick? So before and after he got his armor. I think, you know, and then he gets rushed back to the Bacta tank, and I think they really rushed him back to the Bacta tank so we could finish the flashbacks. So it was a good episode. There's still some things I want to know what they're going to do, you know. I believe it's going to be 7 episodes, so we've got 6 more to really tell. you look at it this way: Star Wars is doing, or Marvel is doing these great series in 6 episodes. Loki, Hawkeye, Falcon and Winter Soldier were all 6 episodes. Mandalorian was 8, but Book of Boba Fett is 7, and that's interesting because I think this first episode was let's get all the back stuff out of the way, and then we got 6 episodes to tell our story. We'll set up a little bit here, but then we've got 6 strong episodes. I'm hoping that's what they're doing. I'm hoping maybe we get a little bit of fan service, but not a huge amount. I would love to see them bring in some of the previous bounty hunters that were associated with them, but I don't want them to get into Jedis and Sith and all of that other stuff. I mean, there's rumors that Kira from Solo, A Star Wars Story may pop up. There's rumors that Darth Maul might pop up. I don't think we need all that. I think, you want to throw in Dengar, Bosk, IG-88, would love it. Other than that, I don't think we need to go into the bigger lore. Let's keep, try to keep some of these shows a little more self-contained. So that's my hope there. All right, that is going to wrap up our conversation for today. Thank you for joining us. Remember, coming up right after this is What's in the Box with Miss Jen. Then we're going to have a special New Year's Eve show going on tomorrow on Friday night. So if you're looking for a way to spend your New Year's Eve, I believe it's going to be on the East Coast time, and Nancy McCann, who runs Comics Unlimited, will be on, and she's going to be doing a special for that. And we're going to do some kind of countdown. I think Kyle's still trying to figure out how to do it, but stick around for that. Have yourself a great weekend, a great New Year's. Be safe. We'll see you next year with more of the Dan Wickline Show. Good night, everybody.